from cataloging the internet to mapping the earth and space, Google sets a very high standard for innovation and imagination. Its advertising platform is a sterling example of that. It's ubiquitous, and all of us probably are using it as part of our operations. So Andy actually has an equally impressive background. He's contributed to some of the most important brands, including Nike, Apple, and IBM. And with that, please join me and the Argyle CMO Leadership Forum and Mark Monitor in welcoming Andy Berndt.
Andy Berndt isn't actually two people. This is Tom Carroll. He's president, is that correct?
Yes.
TBWA, worldwide. And there were two options here for me to drag on for half an hour personally or chat with Tom, so I took plan B. So we'll just be chatting instead of talking, and if anyone has any questions, please interrupt. Chat away.
Go ahead. Well, I'll just introduce myself first. TBWA is the 6th largest global advertising network in the world. For those of you in the US, you know us better as TBWA Chiat Day. Our client list globally is Nissan, Apple, Adidas, which I used to call Adidas until I got the account. Now I call it Adidas, which is how you call it if you're German. And the rest of the world calls it Absolute Vodka, Sony PlayStation. So we're a pretty big global network. Our brand name isn't as well known as some of the others simply because we're a network of a lot of creative agencies from around the world that were kind of smashed together that became TBWA Worldwide. So that's who I am. And I know him forever because he's a big name in the advertising business. And then he flipped and went to the client side on us. So,
we should start by talking about that. If everyone leaves with just one message from me being here, it's that Google is not starting an ad agency. And I'm going to make shirts that say I am not an ad agency. And I think so our salespeople can get back to selling and not running around telling people that we're not an ad agency. I'll explain a little bit about what I'm doing, but just to set the record straight, we're not going to compete with agencies. We're not going to have clients outside of Google. We are an internal creative and marketing resource at Google to manage the brand. And our only client is Google. So if that allays some fears, I hope it does, just to start things out.
should I trust him? That's the question.
That's why I wanted Tom here, so he could corroborate.
I think that what's interesting from the agency standpoint, of course, when Google first came out, there's a huge panic in the advertising industry. Oh, they're going to come and take our business away. And the truth of it is maybe parts of it, they'll be involved in it that we traditionally used to be purely on the agency side, things that are easily automated that used to be done by hand, things of that nature. But Google's more of a partner to the agency world and should be for you people as well, for the whole client community. The way we look at Google is we're in this constant state of perpetual beta. Like all of you, we have tons of data. We don't know what to do with the data. But the reality is in the advertising world, we've always operated off of data. When you bought television, you bought print. Granted, the data wasn't as precise as you can be online, but it's still data. And the thing that we've tried to do is, I feel like it's deja vu today. In 1999, everybody wanted a website. You had to have a website. I had the Drambuie client call me up. We have to have a website. I didn't think a website was going to sell more Drambuie. I thought, getting out and going to bars would sell more Drambuie. But we had to have a website. It's kind of the same way now in our world. Everybody's in a panic about digital. Oh, well, what's our digital strategy? And I knew we should have more digital. Everything's digital. There is no such thing as traditional and digital. All things are digital. And I think the thing that we try to do with our clients, whether it's a healthcare client or it's an automotive client, stop this separation of digital and traditional. It's all digital. And it's ridiculous to talk any other way. Apple, which is one of our largest clients, what we did with Apple, we actually pulled it out of the agency in Los Angeles and moved it across the street and created what we call a Media Arts Lab. And the reason we did that was, first, Apple obviously is on the forefront of technology. So they were the easiest client and brand to pull out of a separate group. But the real purpose was to stop this conversation about traditional and digital. It's kind of like sales and marketing. You know, you're either like this or you're not. So that's really what's our biggest issue with our clients is everybody take a deep breath and let's stop panicking. I'm not saying throw money at things digital. Oh, just you got to test. No, you don't. You have to be smart. You have to read the data, and then you have to kind of go through this perfect storm which is going on in the world of marketing right now, which is all of this stuff coming at the same time and not knowing what to do with it. And it's as much the people with the steadiest hands are going to be the ones who win, like anything.
Well, I think Tom's right. I think that we, at least the way we're looking at things is that this is not a zero-sum game, that all boats rise. The more media come together, the more people are using things to complement each other. I've asked people who were perhaps around if this happened, when print arrived. Did this happen when outdoor arrived? Did this happen when radio arrived? Did this happen, when all these things? Obviously, the web happened faster, but the point is, the more, the merrier in terms of tools. I was on the subway this morning, and there was a poster for an HBO program called In Treatment. And I thought, at the bottom of the poster, there was this little thing that said, on HBO, on demand, online, and on the go. So you could see it on TV, you could order it on demand, you could watch it on the web, or you could download it to your iPod and watch as you go. And I thought, here's traditional media, subway outdoor, brilliantly placed, because in the subway you can't actually make eye contact with anyone, so you have to read these posters, right? And it's a show about being in therapy, with ads in Manhattan, where everyone's in therapy. So how could you? It's a brilliant feat of putting all these things together. I haven't actually Googled it yet, but I'm betting if I did, that I would get the right search results, because they've probably covered that base, and they have a good sense already how that show will do, simply because of search traffic. And these are the things that kind of come together to make these ecosystems, and some advertisers are really embracing this at a sort of experimental level. And I think that's been the biggest shock to me coming to Google, is that Google is a giant lab. It doesn't have a fundamentally corporate structure. It has a fundamentally scientific culture. And so everything gets tried. In fact, sometimes the thinking happens after the doing. And it's odd, because that's what my parents accused me of doing in high school, and it was not a good thing to do before you think. But I think that spirit is really useful, and I think the marketers who are doing best are sort of trying sort of beta all over the place, see what happens, and build on that. Now, there's a huge advantage in the software business, because that's the fundamental sort of creation and distribution model of lay it out there and improve it constantly. It's a little bit different if you're making a hard good that you have to ship. Doing incremental improvements in cars, is more difficult. But I think in terms of marketing, those people who are experimenting with everything working together have a huge advantage. Part of what I want to do ultimately in my group is create a forum where creative people can actually interface with Google to help understand what Google's doing across the board, to take their ideas and make them bigger or more digital or more interesting for their clients. I found when I was running Ogilvy in New York that some of the creative people who really sort of owned a lot of the thought leadership for big brands came out of a traditional space and were reluctant to kind of jump the divide into digital. And a lot of the people who were the best at digital were less involved in the narrative of the brand. So that split sort of worsened over time. That's a generalization. That's not categorically true at all. But I think sort of mending those back together, so the people who are really good at brand stories, brand narrative, the emotional sort of pillars of a brand, but feeling at home with things like YouTube, feeling at home in those areas where, again, you just don't have control. So I hope that's one of the ultimate goals down the road. I need to have a few more people than I have now to actually conduct that. I've got my hands full. In fact, every day I realize more things that make my hands more full. So that's
it's the biggest issue in the advertising industry is collaboration. That's the reason why we yanked all the Apple people out and put them in one place. For the first 8 months, the biggest issue we had was vocabulary, because the traditional people and the digital people and the media people, no one spoke the same language. And these were people who knew each other for a long time. So the thing we did in the first 8 months was define a vocabulary, because there were about 9 definitions of digital, there were 9 definitions of interactive, there were 9 definitions. So in the Media Arts Lab, these words mean this. And it may seem trite, but it's not. I mean, it's not these are all very bright people. And I think that what Andy was saying is true about traditional people being able to go one way and going the other side. It's really weird. We have a candy client, and we do fantastic creative for it. And one commercial got 13 million hits on YouTube, downloads of the commercial, and 245 parodies. Kids taking the commercial and doing a parody off of the spot that was on television. The minute we lowered the weight on the television, on TV, share went down. So it was like, wait a second, we have an internet, YouTube, captured audience hit. And the minute we lowered our GRPs on television, share went down. So, is that a digital hit? Without a doubt. Can you get off television? Not yet. So it's just that kind of balance and understanding that we had a car launch where it was the best, most integrated thing that we've done to date for a car launch. And we had every aspect of the media mix right. We had YouTube stuff, we had digital, we had direct, we had viral, we had everything. Except we had a bad creative idea. And it really didn't matter how well our plan was. We didn't have a good creative idea. So it just fell flat. And I think that at the end of the day, why are we afraid of Google? I'm not. It's still going to come down to the idea. It's still going to come down to the creative. It's still going to come down to the execution. And that doesn't matter whether it's in pharmaceutical or cars or Adidas or Apple. It's going to come down to the creative idea. Do you have an insight? Have you written the story properly? Then you can figure out how to deliver it. And that's where the fun is right now is sometimes it's going to be brand who's going to determine how you deliver the ideas and how the consumer-brand relationship is. Sometimes it's going to be the consumer who's developing that. But it's all happening right now, and it's actually a lot of fun. I mean, I wish I was 25 because I think I would understand more, but it's actually fun to come in the room and watch the dynamic because it's powerful if you get it right. But I continue to say the same thing. If there's one thing I've learned is take a deep breath. We'll figure it out. Start from what you know, and you'll write the story. There's nothing out. No one knows. No one has the secret. No one knows something we all don't know. That's what I always feel like in the room. I feel like people feel, geez, God, I don't know the idea. Nobody has it down yet. We have pieces of it, and the story's being written, but we'll get there.
I'm always curious how people are feeling about all this evolution, and I'd certainly rather talk to queries, quite frankly, about how things are going and how people are feeling, particularly at the CMO level. In my old job, I spent a lot of time with CMOs, and I'm curious as to how people are feeling about the change rate and the evolution and Google's role in it. So I'm happy to talk to that, I'd actually rather talk to questions if anybody has. I could learn a lot more, and everyone else here would probably be more relevant in the spirit of responding to queries. Any questions? Not a single one.
All right, I want to ask.
Oh, good. Very kind of you.
Question for you. What is the Creative Lab? What is that within Google?
Okay. It always goes back to this question. This will take me a year, I think, to get past this. So very specifically, we'll own the brand, the Google brand. And I know it's an odd misnomer to call it the Creative Lab. But quite frankly, I think what we wanted to do was, there's a huge quant factor at Google, obviously, right? And I think what we're doing is thinking about the brand with also sort of a qualitative approach. And I don't think as much qual has been there. It's interesting because I called one of my friends when they first came to me and talked to me about this job. And I said, I really need someone to set me straight, give this to me straight. So I called the person who I felt would be sort of most cynical and sarcastic and jaded about everything, but also brilliant. And these people are usually British. And I said, so I explained the job, and he said, well, I don't get it. He's like, they've become like the most powerful brand ever in the history of the universe, and they didn't need any help from anybody like you. Like, what could you possibly do? And these people are really useful, I have to tell you. It was then actually that I said that I had to absolutely take this job. But I think that there's a lot of sort of prescience at the top at Google about and sort of self-awareness of where the brand is. And even though that branding has not been sort of a focus, it's all been about doing and making things and defending the user. And it's that no one would ever say this, but it's been a radical focus on the consumer. Like, those terms don't exist for the most part at Google. But I think our role will be looking at the brand going forward and figuring out how to, as the context changes, as Google changes, how do you keep an emotional connection to people out there, all kinds of different audiences, and how you parse those out and how you talk to them. The Creative Lab is tough because it's seeing now, and this job may evolve. Everything at Google evolves, I'm learning, very quickly. But the brand is the key thing. The second thing is really communications about products and initiatives, about partnerships, about big things that would be brand defining. We'll be in charge of those. And those might be internally handled by us. They might be in partnership with agencies, with comm planning agencies. That's sort of yet to be determined. But that's sort of our charge.
I would say my feeling is that of being overpowered, overwhelmed by the number of opportunities, and knowing where to really focus dollars, resources, attention between SEO and PPC and all the millions of websites to advertise on and so forth. What would be your thoughts about that?
Well, first I empathize. Every day I feel like I learn 2 new things and realize that I don't know another 10. I think it goes back to that notion of grip the wheel loosely and try things at small scale, because the less that and I think this is one thing where we at Google need to do a lot of work, is sort of inviting people in to understand more about what we do, because the more time goes by that you try less things, I think the larger the wall gets of overwhelmingness. At Ogilvy, for example, we had this sort of enforced training where we got all the senior people together and literally forced them to sit in a chair and make a MySpace page, make a Facebook page, buy AdWords, like actually participate in all those things. And as you participate, the fear drops because they don't seem like a sort of steamroller of chaos that's coming at you. I think that's the thing. And the good thing is you can experiment with a lot of these things at low cost. The flip side of that is most companies are used to the perfect and release mode, and failure is not a data point, it's doom. And if there was any general message I would say is that those very senior people who can say, yes, who can defend people who go and try things, small things, and get traction and say, hey, we tried that, not working so well, let's kill it off and go try this. Because the fear that especially really sort of innovative, sort of mid-level and junior people sense from the top about experimenting is really killing off a lot of forward motion. So being a champion of, hey, we tried this thing, we tried 4 things, 3 were a failure, this was a big hit, good work, go do it again. I mean, that's sort of at the core, I think, of how Google works, not by any grand plan, but by more of just the approach of, the scientific approach of learn what works, don't feel that if something doesn't work, you've learned something, instead of if something doesn't work, you have failed and you have therefore no self-worth, and you will not rise up the corporate ladder. So that's the best advice I can give. But
and I would say that if I look across our 300 some clients, the ones in panic are the ones in trouble. The ones who aren't panicking are the ones who can see clearly, and see it at different levels. If you have a senior person who doesn't understand the digital world, he or she has their entire department in this state of panic all the time about, we've missed the digital boat. It's what I always say to our guys, we're not behind, but we're not ahead, so we're behind. And I don't even know what ahead means yet, other than to keep trying and keep pushing and keep doing things like the Media Arts Lab, or keep trying and pushing people forward. But that's the biggest quality I look at it, is panic. There's just this overwhelm. When overwhelming becomes panic, nobody wins. Everybody loses. It's take a deep breath. I would argue, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but start from the premise that you do know. And start from what you know and build out from there. What's happening is everybody keeps leaping over here going, it's a new world. No, it's not. It's the same world evolving. And I think that's the biggest problem is you got to use, senior people either set the tenor for how people approach this and work at it, or they don't. And I think it's human nature to be overwhelmed, but it doesn't do any good to panic.
let me ask you this. How many people in this room have uploaded a video to YouTube? Uploaded. That's great. I mean, I actually think that the act of uploading a video to YouTube personally is better than going to a 4-day offsite about the marketing assets of YouTube. I mean, just participating, making a Facebook page. I've made a couple of these things, and I can't even really find out where they are now. Yet I still get these emails about I'd like to join your something community. But literally leaping in to these things and having your people leap in is a way where suddenly they say, wow, I tried that and the sky didn't fall. And reducing those conversations about, I mean, I spend some of my time saying to people, cut it with the TV is dead thing. Cut it with the old is dead. Cut all that conversation, because that's sort of as narrow-minded as the flip side, which says digital's a fad, right? I mean, that's not a thoughtful way to think about what's happening. It's the more tools, the more toys in the sandbox, the better it all gets.
I can tell you what not to do. Our chief digital officer said to me before Christmas, send out a note. We have 11,000 employees around the world, and have everybody join Facebook. Don't. My email is a mess, and I get them from countries, and they write in their language like I know every language on the planet. And my emails, and it's just so overwhelming. But I like the spirit of the idea. Let's get everybody on Facebook in the company. It's the same thing Annie just said. I love what her thought was. I just wish she had kept me off because it's ridiculous. But it's had a really great effect because people are talking and playing, and they're creating these little communities around Facebook. It's just a fun tool. I don't know what will come of it, but it sent the right message, I think, to the company just to say, try, just get comfortable with it. And the chairman of our company is a very traditional French guy. If he doesn't stop sending me super wall stuff, it's like he's a child.
You know, we have a great email product that could help you filter out those.
It's fun.
Any other questions?
I think the problem is you can go ahead and try a lot of marketing things, but if the organization isn't aligned with marketing, then that's where it starts to fall apart. Like, I think the beauty of Google is the fact that the whole entire organization has that same philosophy, let's try everything, and the organization shifts. Not so at other places. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's, I think there's, the best way to go at that is, I think, some way to immerse people in what's possible. Because again, I think it's a big, and I've been in a couple of meetings where people from Google or from other sort of new media-oriented places make a speech about something, and it is so confusing that the most senior people in the room, and I can feel myself even doing this, just nod, because it'll either make it stop, right? Or
it's what it
yeah, or they feel like, I don't want to ask a question because will I be the person in the room who looks like I don't understand the future, right? And because I come from the creative side, we have this special pass to ask really dumb questions all the time. So I say, wait a second, I don't get that. Could you say that in smaller words? And usually there's like 2 or 3 of those steps. And by the time you get to the smallest, simplest things, then everyone on the table goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I think that's a huge deal, because I think a lot of people who aren't comfortable in the space retreat from those conversations and specifically push them away because we don't present them in a way that gives them a doorway to understand and participate. And that's been a little of the generalized arrogance of the, first let me tell you how you're outdated and obsolete, okay? Then let me explain what I'm doing. And that's not really a very clever way to, embrace someone in a conversation. And I think that's part of what my job is, to actually explain some of the motivations and the things that Google's doing in a way that everyone gets to participate in, not just sort of maybe a power user base or people who are already there.
It's like raising kids. You can either, discipline them when they're younger. You can pay for their therapy when they get older. It's the same thing. I'm no different than anybody else. I got caught in that same, oh God, I'll just pretend I understand, or I'll say, well, I need to talk to the guys at Google. And then I can't wait until you're saying, I need to talk to the guys at Google is your way out of any conversation, because it still is. Well, I was talking to the guys at Google the other day. And then all of a sudden, he knows something. The truth is, it's like, I sound like it's like you just have to stop and say, I don't understand. Lots of people just pretend, and I think the minute you admit you have a problem, it's like drinking. And then you just stop and you say, you know what, I don't understand. And every time somebody says something, I don't understand a word you said. If it's kind of a rule, I do it all the time. I say, do you understand what he just said? Explain it to me. Explain what he just said. I can catch people in every meeting not understanding what somebody else, because you just have to take the time, go through the discipline, common language, and do it for yourself. And start today. It's kind of like today is the first day of the rest of your digital life.
Hi, my name is Isabel Himmelmacher from the History Channel. Could you share a little bit about your vision for the brand, the Google brand, I know it's organizing the world's information. Is that still the same? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I don't. That's an interesting question because I don't. Google's very much still a founder-driven, leader-driven place, right? So I don't think my job is so much to, create a vision for this brand as it is to understand both the text and the subtext of where the people who drive the company are coming from, and then sometimes translate that for a wider audience, right? So, generally speaking, if people have experience with this, but engineers are not crazy about marketing people, and often for good reason. And so, sort of taking what these sort of sound bites and these pieces of DNA from where the company's coming from, like Organize the World's Information, for example, is a really interesting thing. Organize the World's Information is the ultimate hack if you're a computer person or you're an engineer. It is the sort of the largest goal or display of ability, right? And that's part of the engineering community runs on these masterful exchange displays of, wow, look what I did here, look at this thing, or this thing did this, but then we added this. It's an amazing creative space. And I think that Organizing the World's Information started as Organizing the World's Information, and then was added and make it more useful and accessible for everyone. But the core aspect behind that is a sort of quixotic, bold, almost moonshot type of spirit that's at the center of Google. And it's less competitive than it is sort of aspirational. But that needs a lot of communication. That needs a lot of explanation. That needs translation to people who may not participate at the center of that activity, but still live in the ecosystem that community touches. And so the vision for the brand, I think, is in organizing the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful for everyone. I think how that is done and how it's communicated so that the spirit comes across, as well as the effects, just the sort of the market effects and those things, is my job. So the vision for the brand is to keep what it is, keep reminding people what it is that they love about the notion of Google. And the notion of Google is really emotionally more about sort of big, bold endeavors to try things. It's not about conquering markets. It's not about those things. That's not at the center of the brand. But as it gets bigger, and if you hire this many people, like on a regular basis, and people are the center of a brand, employees, it gets harder and harder for that core message to live outside. So I don't know if that's so much a vision, and I've only been there 3 months, and I'm still working on it, and it could change at any moment. But that's kind of my focus.
You spoke about bringing the group together for Apple, bringing the people with the narrative, bringing the people with the digital experience together, defining. Is this a trend? Google's now starting the Creative Lab, Dell, Da Vinci. Can you talk more about that? And then what are the reasons why this is a trend is it a trend that's emerging, and why? And what do you think of the benefits, the reasons for doing that?
I mean, it comes right off of what Andy said. We look at Google as a tool, and it's a tool for creative people. We just don't see it as an intimidating thing. Lee Clow is a guy that we both know. He's a creative director. He's probably the best creative director on the planet in the last 20 years. And he's 63 years old. He's ecstatic about Google and the whole digital world, because all it's done is open up a palette for more things, for more ways to be creative You know, we were kind of limited to television, outdoor, and print. It was fun while it lasted, but you know, now you've got about 20 new ways to engage people and be creative. And to do that, you got to bring people together, and you got to sit down in the room and say what's possible. You know, we have this asthma drug for a client, and we did this website, and it's for kids where they get on the web and they learn how to use their inhalers through this game, this digital game. It's like Webkins or something else. Well, it's really, you know, these are 26-year-old kids who got it. When you get that in the hands of, you get that idea at the table, and then you get that in the hands of somebody who knows the categories older a little better, and the whole thing comes together, and you see this whole brand recreating itself, being far more engaging, far easier to access, far deeper connection with clients. It's just getting everybody at the table. Whenever you close spaces, I don't care what kind of business you're in, every time I've seen it is, the more you close space between people, the better off you are. So, and you just have to force it. That separation is what's been holding all this back and creating all that anxiety that that gentleman's worried about.
I think we've been given the hook.
We're done.
Fair?
We're going to go back
Fair to say?
and make
Okay.
ads.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.